Hey, cousins. We are back again. We back again.
Big again.
And if you heard that voice, you probably know who it is.
Hi.
We have another episode, and I'm going to just bring out the introduction because we loved her so much the first time and the second time.
Yeah.
And now we are again introducing y'all to Beabad.
Hi. Beabad. Hello.
Hello. So the last time y'all saw Miss Beabad, we were talking about astrology, and I hope y'all enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. I very much so enjoyed that conversation.
This time around, we're going to talk about something a little bit more spicy, if you will. Have you ever heard the term homosociality?
Probably not.
If you haven't, let me tell you what that is.
Yes.
Right? So homosexuality is a social relationships between people of the same sex, focused on shared interests, camaraderie, and bonding rather than sexual interaction. Right? Because I'm going to read what Google told me, some aspects of the same-sex bonds, fraternity and sorority settings, women retreats, and even sometimes this can exist in workplace dynamics. You're probably wondering, where did this come from? You just made that up, David. I didn't. Let me tell you how I know I didn't make it up. Because the concept of homosocial originates from 1920s, where the term was first appearing in works of psychologist John Flugel in 1927, then was further developed by sociologists like Jane Blumen, and to describe non-sexual social bonds between people of the same sex, particularly men. So, this is not a new concept. We are well over a century beyond this concept. Why are we talking about this concept today? Is because it's a lot of you niggas who are looking for approval and validation from other niggas. And yes, I said the N-word. This is a black-ass show.
Yes, it is.
And I thought B would be a great person for this because if you don't know her content on Tactless Radio or Beabad on TikTok, she's kind of a big deal for her opinions.
I am.
And
no one likes them.
And we often talk about how men don't like women.
Nah.
Right?
I do want to start this episode off with making the distinction that when we say that men don't like women, we are not implicitly saying that they are gay.
Correct. Homo is a Greek word for same.
Yes.
For those of you who did not finish high school.
Many
or do
of you
they
all
still
didn't.
do they still teach Greek and Latin in school?
Absolutely not. Where the budget gonna come from?
Really? God, our childhood was so different.
Yeah.
Anyway, I learned this in like middle school, actually. Anyway, getting off topic. We often talk about how men don't like women. You can tell in the way that they treat them. We can, in the way they talk to them, the way they talk about them. And then you're like, so who are they seeking validation or approval from? Other men in social settings. And yes, before you ask, this can exist in homosexual relationships as well.
Yes, which I'm very excited to get into from your perspective.
Yeah. So my first question to you, B, is have you heard this term before?
Yes. I have heard this term before. And I think a lot of us have also experienced it and maybe didn't have that word available to apply it to what we were going through at that time.
Do you have any experiences? And we go keep it funny first before we get into some like our really deep rooted opinions. Have you had experiences where you feel like you've experienced a man who is more homosocial than he is about like
many? And what is interesting about those dynamics is that I wouldn't even say that those particular men that I have come across don't like women. It's just that they like men more. Like they like women from a perspective of like, what can this woman provide for me, do for me? They might find her attractive. They might think she's funny from time to time. She looks good on their arm. She's able to give them some type of social currency. But when it comes to validation for those men who are not evolved and healed, they typically will run back to their center group of other male friends simply, like you said earlier, for a level of validation that feeds to them because men are ran by their egos. They need their egos stroked. They need to feel like they belong somewhere. Yeah. And a lot of those type of feelings are validated in those homosocial spaces.
Which makes sense because women typically will challenge you in spaces to be different or be better or show up differently. In your opinion, where do you think this term not necessarily came from, but like, what do you think causes this thing to be a thing? Where do you think homosociality kind of started, or like, how do we get to this?
At the beginning, I think a lot of men don't realize that they are socialized at birth to not like or to be feminine. They're unfortunate, and I hate that because it's an act of the patriarchy where men are not taught or they're not able to cry, to be emotional, to play with dolls. If they're not G.I. Joes, they can't like the color pink or yellow. They have to like red or blue. And a lot of people will say, because we're going to talk about nurture versus nature in a little bit, but a lot of people would say, oh, that's just how he is. But you put dinosaurs in front of him, trucks in front of him, you yell at him when he cries, he has a little switch in his walk, you beat the fuck out of him. So men are raised with the understanding that femininity is bad. And then some of them have an internal struggle with wanting to be with the woman who is at maybe fully, or the type of woman that they want to be with, is embracing femininity. And then you find that there are conflicts. For instance, a lot of men would love to be with feminine women, but then they turn around and say they don't like feminine things. So for instance, as an example, so many women do enjoy astrology. So many women enjoy hair and makeup, but you'll hear men say, astrology isn't real. I don't like astrology, that astrology bullshit. Or I don't
like a woman who wears too much makeup.
Exactly. And why, as a man, do you have a comment on hair and makeup? And it's typically a negative comment. It's never like, I like how you did your hair today, or I love that purple eyeshadow that you put with the sparkles. That's so creative. It's more like, no, no, no. But that happened when they were younger. Yeah. It's difficult for them to kind of come to terms with understanding that you want a feminine woman, but you were taught at a very young age that anything feminine is bad.
No, I think that's a very interesting thing, because I think it also starts with from the beginning too. I think that boys, like you said, in a very similar way, boys are always taught like, you make friends with other boys. Girls are icky to a certain amount until a certain time.
They got cooties,
right? And then there's a space in which boys are kind of crafted to treating women poorly. Be starting with that concept of like, ill girls are gross, and then when girls are not gross, they're kind of like trained to be like, treat women as conquest. Like we talked about this on the way from the airport, that I don't hear people go to little girls like, ooh, do you have a little boyfriend?
No, they would hit that girl if she was to find any type of boy interesting.
But at a certain age, little boys are starting to act like, I bet you got a bunch of little girls running around. Disgusting. And it already creates this idea that is what I'm supposed to be obtaining. And the only people that are asking you that typically are other grown-ass men.
Which is absolutely crazy.
So when you think about the social idea of that, it makes sense to me that we have so many adult men who experience and live life in a very homosocial way. I also want to clarify that when we are thinking about femininity, we're talking about stereotypical ideas of femininity, right? Yes. Patriarchal ideas of femininity, like cooking, cleaning, and all these things that are supposed to be womanly things that men don't do, right? I also think it's very interesting that homosocial experiments, right? We can even think about physical attraction. And now, I want to say this was Cam Newton. Hopefully it was not AI. I don't be doing enough research sometimes to verify. But Cam Newton talked about going to the strip club and only going to the strip club because of his homies. And the goal, but like there's a part of him that wants to outdo his friends so that they think he's cool. If his friend spends a stack, he go spend 2. If his friend spends 5, he go spend 10. Because the idea is about dominance.
Yes. And
they only do this battle, this struggle. I'm going to use the chicken battle is in the sense of dominance is because it's about, I think that you are my equal. So now I have to like fight you for that. And they don't see women as equals. So they don't feel the need to fight with women about anything.
Yeah. It's a competition of who going to be big bro.
Yeah. At the end of the day. And I think the right reason why this topic is so funny to me is because we're watching people like, I think his name is Kevin Samuels, Cam Newton, not Ray J, sorry. What's the man's name?
Nick Cannon.
who are actively kind of exhibiting that very behavior. Like publicly talking about how they don't like women. You yourself, unfortunately, have gotten death threats by just simply saying the comment, men don't like women.
I have. I've gotten death threats. I've had people take my image and AI it for me to be nude and post it online in certain forums. I've been literally attacked by men simply for saying what I thought was obvious.
But also simultaneously saying, I love women. But you love women, but you smacking the shit out of them every 20 minutes. And you love women, but you don't speak about them in a positive way at all. And now, does not mean that you need to, air quote, like, bend over and take it in an aspect of, like, accepting women. But I do think that we need to have a conversation about, like, homosocial spaces tend to sometimes always be disrespectful towards women because the idea is disrespecting women is cool.
It starts at a very young age, even that. Like, when you have a little boy that likes a little girl, he's mushing her, he's pushing her, he's snapping her bra strap, he's talking bad to her. A lot of boys don't even know how to express to a woman that they like her without some type of trauma in that space. Like, why must you knock my books out of my hand to get my attention? But then again, if you're sweet to a girl, you bring her a flower or you make her your Valentine, then you do have those homosocial spaces that you're normally in talk bad about you. Now you're a simp. Or now, you're pussy whipped, or that girl got you around your finger. So you're not even allowed to express in a very kind way the way that you like the girl that you like, and the way that society, your homosocial connects will tell you that you need to express that you have an interest in a girl is to snap her bra or to push her down or to tackle her.
Man, you over there being soft.
Yes.
And like this idea of like just getting this validation from your homies or even little things. I'm going to say this and then we get to some of the notes that you have here. Mm-hmm. I think about like men who get dressed and wear certain clothing. We talked about this, like men that sag. Let me be very clear. If you do not know this, I've said this several times in several spaces on several forums. Do you know the origin of where sagging started? It started as a prison thing to basically say, come get this thing. Mm-hmm. So you weirdos who are out here sagging for no real purpose, I want you to understand that this is why you probably get certain types of attention. But even with that,
I'm sorry. Let me indicate. Prison didn't come from.
Sagging.
Sagging didn't come from prison. Sagging came from slavery. Sagging came from slavery because if you were deemed to be not listening to your master, they would tie you to a tree, have all your family around, children, wife included. They would beat you to a pole, and then they would rape you.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about white.
Sounds about white.
That's where the term buck breaking came from. So it didn't come from prison; it came from actual slavery.
And on this here podcast, we learn things and we listen.
We listen and we learn.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere else. No, I appreciate that feedback from one of the producers here who I love so much and love working with him. Right, buck breaking. Right, that's where it comes from. But even that is translated to this space in where everything kind of comes back to slavery at some point, to be honest.
It does.
But we now live in a space in which, again, disrespecting women is cool or placating to your homies and making sure your homies think you're the coolest person on the block is more important than, say, maintaining your relationship with your wife or your kids. Like, you'll jeopardize your relationship in order to go out with your homeboys. You don't even make sure your rent and bills are paid, but you will go out and have drinks with your friends and spend money you don't have to spend.
And I do want to make it clear that we are talking about a very specific subset of you niggas. Because of
all
course,
niggas ain't like that.
Right. No, not all men. Okay, we got that out the way. Continue.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about homosocial situations, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about one very specific thing for me. Mm-hmm. And saying that I think this can exist in homosexual spaces as well. I've dated someone who I honestly feel as if when we were together, it definitely very much so felt like this person's relationships with his friends mattered more than the relationship that we had. Mm-hmm. And it could be maybe they were friends for a long time or whatever the situation is, right? But it'll be things that I can look back and I'll be like, where they chose to live, for example, was a space to live to be closer to their friends versus closer to their job, right? Or you know, understand that they couldn't afford certain things, but still fighting to go on trips with their friends, or, you know, what are those things that's like, why are you going broke to try to make sure? So when we think about the idea of keeping up with the Joneses, some men are doing it just to keep up with their friends because their friends have these things. Their friends have money, or their friends can get the new Gucci slippers. And now they're like, I want to get that. But then they are doing this on the front end. But then sometimes on the back, and be like, yeah, that nigga this, that nigga that. But you are still doing everything in your power to keep up with him.
Yeah.
Right? What is one of your short stories of examples of you like noticing a man probably mistreating you potentially in order to placate to his boys, or not protecting you even? I also think homosocial spaces include a space of men not protecting women.
Most definitely. The first thing that comes to mind, and I do want to make sure that I notate that you niggas will never get to disrespect me, right? But what I have learned...
Oh, you want to talk about mothers?
You want to talk about mothers? But what I will say, from my perspective, and I know a lot of other women or femme presenting individuals can relate to this, is the fact that femininity or women in general do provide social currency.
Yes.
So one thing that I have noticed, and unfortunately I have also been in that situation, is that I had to learn a little later on in some relationships or in some pairings that the only reason you are with me is because of how I look, what my credentials are, how I present, because you want to be able to go back typically to your boys and say, this is what I was able to acquire.
Look who I bagged.
Exactly. And I'm nobody's trophy. And I would notice, like, you don't like to get to know me. Like when you're with someone and they don't take an interest in your interest, or you all are not able to communicate effectively, but y'all are always out. You're always in the streets. You're always hitting the town. Everybody wants to take photos. You want to jump in the photos, but you're not taking a full interest in who I am as a person.
Talking about my life as if I'm not present.
This is an intervention. Just wanted to let you know. But I
stopped talking to him 4 years ago.
But that's what I have noticed, and I know a lot of other women can relate to this, that sometimes men are not genuinely interested in you. They're genuinely only interested in how they can utilize how you look or who you are. Of you. Right, back to those homosocial relationships and spaces that they're in. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, really, because they only kind of see you as a trophy,
or as an item to be owned. Or we think about dream girls for my queer people who probably, and some of y'all straights too, right? When we think
we're not heterophobic, maybe just a little bit.
I say it all the time. I'm your local straight ally, so we're not doing that over here. I love the straights, but in dream girls, that's a perfect example of like how men sometimes see women as currency. Mm-hmm. In the movie, there's a part where the better singer is pushed to the background because she's not as visually appealing.
Yep.
As one of the other ladies.
Yep.
Because there is a space in which I think, and even when we think about this in like modern day of how my sister asked me, she's like, what do you think about men who like constantly sleep with women after woman after woman after woman? Do you think they're gay? And I was like, no.
I don't either.
But I do think that he is doing this so that he can get praise. Even if he's not actually doing it, he will say that he's doing these things so that he can get praise from his friends. So his friends could be like impressed with the amount of women that he's been with.
I want to say that I genuinely want men to have better friendships, deep connections. Because if you have a surface level group of friends where pussy, getting money, and showing up with the biggest chain is all they care about, then that is going to be the space that you stay in. But if you have friends that are around you that care about what you're going through at work, that cares about how your family is doing, that cares sometimes even about how your mental is, because men are overworked, stressed the fuck out, and suicide is high. If they were able to have a better sense of friendships around them, I do truly believe that what they care about will also change, because that's how strong homosocial relationships are.
Ooh, dig into that more. What do you mean?
Because those homosocial relationships mean so much to men. You then have to say to yourself, what is the quality of that homosocial space?
What's the quality of the people that you're holding on to?
Exactly. And a lot of men who find that pussy money is the only thing that they should care about in their lives, I would bet don't have a good quality of people around them.
Listen, and don't have good quality relationships with the people that they are choosing as their partners.
That too. Some raggedy people out here.
No, it something you said earlier made me think back to a much, much earlier relationship. And I remember even a friendship, honestly, right? I had a friend an ex that whenever they would introduce me, it was almost like a show pony.
I know the feeling.
Where it was like, look
at my blue prize, my blue ribbon cow.
I had an ex that was like I feel like anytime he introduced me to like his friends or coworkers, like, isn't he beautiful? And on the surface, you're like, this is great. He's praising me. But then when you realize, like, why is that the introduction? Right? And I think that women probably experience this a lot more often, right? Because there's a space in which I saw someone give an example of homosocial spaces where they do treat women as currency, because it's like, look at how beautiful and successful my girl is.
Yeah.
But she can't be more successful than I am.
Exactly.
Because then at that point, I'm no longer the man or the leader of this household. Which now means and this is where the disrespect part comes into some people who operate as homosocial spaces, because now the idea is always about dominance.
For a lot of men.
Which we talked about.
It's always the idea of like dominance and being the alpha and kind of always being at the top. And that mindset needs to shift, because for you to be able to be not only in romantic relationships, but also platonic relationships, there has to be an understanding of equality. And that's going to take a long time for some niggas to understand.
You said something very interesting to me, so I want to bring it around to this. You mentioned something about Greek things and patriarchy. What part do you think patriarchy or even Greek history teaches us about homosocial spaces?
So I have gone down the alt-right pipeline and did some learning and learned a lot about gropers and and gone down a really crazy pipeline and learned about groypers and Pepe the Frog and the meme and everything. And what I learned when doing my research is that there are a sect of men that really romanticize Greco-Roman relationships, or just the classical time of the Greco-Roman relationship, because during that time, women were oppressed and they weren't seen as equal. They were a subclass of individuals. And they only saw sexual relations with women as a way to continue their lineage. And it was only for procreation. Like, having sex with the woman was only to continue your DNA walking around in the world. And they also did not believe that you could love someone who you were not equal to. And they did not see women as their equal. So therefore, they found that they can have actual love and actual relationships with other men.
Because in which seeing men as other equals.
And that's even steeped in dominance, like you said earlier, because yes, you can only love another man, but I still need to dominate that man. That man needs to present as trans. That man needs to present as femme, because there still needs to be an understanding of roles.
Or be willing to be put underneath me figuratively.
Right. Or you let me attack you so that I know that I'm the alpha and you're not. They can't even understand that even in the space of where you want to have romantic love, even with another man, dominance still is at play here.
So there's a book series that I'm really, really fond of right now. It's called Zodiac Academy. There's a very specific couple. I'm going to say this, and hopefully without spoiling too much, if you plan to read at some point. There's a pairing. They're both guys, but they both consider themselves alphas, or strongest of their kind. Excuse me. They're strongest of their kind. And one of the power struggles they constantly talk about with this pairing is that there's always like, well, I'm not going to always be submissive to you. I like to be dominant. And I also think in homosexual relationships, that has been a common crux for me, right? And I'm going to shift it back to the homosocial space. But in the homosexual space, for me, I don't see it as such, right? I'm not actually looking to be dominant or to be dominated, right?
Right.
I just exist. But I think because I exist with such a strong presence, sometimes people think that my goal is to be controlling or manipulative or dominating. I'm like, no, I'm just existing. You get to tell me whether you do or don't want something, or if you do or don't like something. If you don't tell me, then I'm going to just move as I've been moving.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And when I think about my experience as a gay man dealing with people who operate in homosocial spaces, I found myself with partners who have, and we've talked about this about men who do this to women. I was sick. There was a medication. I was starting a new medication, and my body always reacts very adversely to the first round of new medication. Even when I got vaccinated, right? My body just does something, right? It has to adjust. So this very particular time, I was taking new medication, and I ended up getting really sick. Like I had a fever. Like I was in bed with literally 6 blankets on, shivering, couldn't, like, body hurts, aches, the whole thing, right? My partner at the time, the very first night it happened, was there, supportive, sent everybody home, came and laid in bed with me, and just like, just held me. Great, right? Night 2, however, it was almost like, oh, you seem better, so I'm fine. And it was either night 2 or I want to say night 2, because he felt like, night 2 or 3, because he felt like I was feeling better. He was like, oh, I'm going to go out to the club with my friends. What?
Huh?
Like, because in my mind, and I'm not saying this is accurate, but in my mind, if my partner isn't well, I want to make sure that my partner is well before I leave this space, right? Cool. Even if my partner looks well, if I touch you, like, maybe this is the maternal part of me, right? The cancer energy. If I touch that forehead and you still burning up, I'm actually going to sit back and keep an eye on you for a minute. Right? Or you telling me that you have body aches. I don't know if I'm go leave you just yet. I'll see my boys next week. That's not what happened for me, though.
I hate you had that experience.
And I'm pretty sure this person will probably like, no, it wasn't that deep. You said it was fine. Sure, I lied. Whatever. But I think about that in the aspect
now you can't lie now. You got to be honest, too.
I know. I'll be like, no, I'm good. Like, you can tell I got an attitude. Very much that. No, you gonna go out anyway, so I'm not about to play this. But I'm not doing that to bash this person or bash him. It's a situation when I think about women who do that or have to deal with that, or men who will literally, and I'm telling my friends business and they don't know, y'all don't know who this person is. But I know someone whose baby daddy, was at that time, was supposed to be their baby daddy, let them go get an abortion without them because he had a studio session and didn't want to miss his studio session while your girlfriend is going to get an abortion with your fetus.
Men are selfish.
But it makes me think about homosocial, because what was so important about being in the studio with your homies that you left your girl out by herself like that? Right? And that's when I think about I think homosocial spaces, let me also say this, because I think it sounds like I'm bashing it. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting validation and acceptance and having a brotherhood with other men.
Right.
Or even women having that with other women, right? Having that sisterhood, that sorority, that fraternity vibe. But at what point do you differentiate how much you give to those spaces versus how you give spaces to, say, your relationships, your partnerships, your children, your family, your home? And I think that there's a harmful part to homosocial spaces within Black men specifically that is very harmful to other parts of the community, whether that be queer or women, right? What do you say to that?
Because we live in a patriarchal society, everyone is male-centered, even men.
Yeah.
Because to kind of bring in some dynamics that women go through from a homosocial perspective, or even to a homosocial perspective, and even to a heterosocial perspective, I think about the girl who's like, well, I don't get along with other women.
Ooh.
I can only be with men. Women are so dramatic. Like,
wake it up.
I can't be with other girls. Like, all of my friends are guys. And I hate that bitch. Just, straight off the bat, I hate that bitch. But I typically also can empathize with her, and I feel bad for her because she typically takes on that idea because her first bully typically was a woman in her family or her mother. So a lot of women don't have the best relationships with other women, and I can also understand that a lot of men probably don't have the best relationship
with their father.
With their moms.
I say that too.
To kind of peel back, like, why do we say that men don't like women? They probably have a dynamic with their mother that they didn't like her. And that's supposed to be the first woman you love. And they have to kind of sort through that, heal through that to understand that I do like women. But who was the first woman that hurt you? Similarly, that's why I think it's interesting that there are women that have heterosocial understandings and will immediately say that I don't like women. But that's the thing. Women always get the brunt end of the stick. That's always what it's going to be, that women as a whole, because we live in a patriarchy, will get the brunt end of the stick.
You're making me think about, have you ever read All About Love by Bell Hooks?
I have.
Also, I feel like such a nerd. I'm referencing so many books. I love it. But Bell Hooks talks about the idea of women being treated as lower or less than equal, right?
Right.
And talks about even as little boys, they're kind of taught, I'm paraphrasing, I could be a little off here, right? But paraphrasing that little boys, when they found out that their mothers don't hold as much power as they thought they did, the little boy starts to mistreat the mother and starts to manipulate her and use power plays against her because he knows that ultimately she doesn't really have power over the man. And
that's how they, and subconsciously, they're picking up on the mechanisms of patriarchy when that comes to mind, that they can be a little snippy, a little snappy. They can be they're bigger. Yeah. Like there gets to a point where that little boy turns into a teenage boy, into a young adult, and turns into a man. And there gets to a point where you're taller than your mom. You're bigger than your mom. You're stronger than your mom. But you have to have had, hopefully, a really good upbringing and understanding of who you are and who is around you to not go down that route.
Yeah.
But what I want to say about like women in homosocial spaces is that I typically, and I know it exists because I've also been around some raggedy ass women, but I typically see homosocial relationships amongst women happen, and they have to be there out of safety, out of the fact that we understand that we're not going to be able, out of community, out of just being able to have the village and help our children out. Like that, I have seen when you have homosocial relationships amongst women is a better space to be in, or for some women, the only space they can be in to have some type of romance, to have a platonic relationship where your homie not trying to fuck you every 5 minutes, to be able to have a girlfriend that's like, you're down. You emotionally need assistance. You need help. Let me grab them kids from you and help you out. Like I find the village. Think about
my friends who did that for each other.
Exactly, because I find that overall, the relationships that women are able to garner amongst each other are rooted in something more than us trying to get validation from one another.
And do you think that there is a space in which that exists for women versus men in these homosocial spaces because of that emotional space that women are allowed to explore and figure that out more than men are?
Yes, I think a lot of women are able to have deeper connections amongst each other because we were allowed, even at a young age, to be expressive, to be emotional, to be open, to cry, to figure ourselves out as a full individual, even under the oppression we go through.
Under the patriarchal system.
I sympathize with the fact that men don't get the same space to fully express and understand themselves. Yeah. And even if they do express and understand themselves, some of it they have to cut off if they want to be seen as a man in society.
Yeah, and it brings an interesting concept or idea to me of me being a queer man, right? And this idea, like, and I don't know if I've ever told the story. I remember I was out at, if y'all don't know by now, I live in Houston. I was at Crocker Bar on the patio, also known as the porch to me. I'm out there, right? And I'm having this conversation with this guy because I don't drink. So it's very rare that I have things in my hands when I'm at the bar. So I grab, I have a cup in my hand for a change. And he's looking me up and down, and you can tell he's like assessing me, right? And then he gets to my hand and he goes, I was like, what was that? Something just happened, right? And he was like, the nails, I didn't expect that. He like, you're so masculine presenting, like that just kind of threw me off, right? And even in that weird space, I think about the idea of that's why I said I think homosocial spaces can exist even in homosexual spaces. And they are not necessarily tied together. But this idea that we even believe in what femininity is versus what it isn't.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because even in these spaces, like it's something about men and Black men specifically, like I wish I could understand why there's a space where we actively seek validation from other men, even our queer friendships. Because Jesus. I don't have that, right? I don't believe in that. I don't think I ever have, but I also didn't have a lot of friends growing up. Like, my friends were my family. Like, my siblings. I got 8 of them, motherfuckers. So, right? So I didn't have that same concept, but also I think they're the space in which being a gay man or a queer man, Black families kind of like, I don't want to say, I don't know any other way to say it, but like throw us away in a way of like, I don't really know what to do with that. So
yeah, you raise girls and
figure it out. You raise girls and you raise boys, but you don't know how to raise those who exist in between.
What I was going to say is you love boys, but you raise girls. That's typically how the saying goes.
The mom, anyway.
And because of that, a lot of boys grow up, in my opinion, a lot of boys grow up seeking male validation, especially if they did not have their father in their life.
So the crux of this is your daddy is your problem. I'm playing. I'm kidding.
For a lot of people, their daddy is their problem. A lot of people are like, if I just fight that nigga one good time, I wouldn't need therapy anymore.
Oh my God. Did you not see the video? The dude was like, Daddy, what would you do if I smacked you?
He was like, I would kill you.
Right. Right? That's the generation I come from. But it's making me think about people I know. Like, I know men who have been very physically abusive to women.
Yeah.
Right? And it's stuff like that. Like, you can't convince me that you like women if you're always hitting them, unless there's this weird warped thing of like, no, because I don't see men fighting other men in that same capacity.
I think I've actually brought this up with my partner recently, that because men live in this space of like who's more dominant and who's more alpha, there will be like a arguing or a screaming match, or like they'll have a little scuffle out in the street. But because they automatically know that they're bigger, stronger, seen as above women, there's typically not a lot of like verbal. It can be, but men immediately will just go to, well, you're lesser than, so let me hit you, let me smack you, let me call you out your name, let me call you a bitch. But they think twice when it's another man, right? Because you know men are violent.
Yeah.
And you know they might off your ass. And they might punch you in the fucking mouth. But when it comes to
I don't
women...
have those fears, worries, or concerns.
They don't have the same fear when it comes to women, right? So, you know, they kind of do whatever the fuck they want to do. But when it's another man, I feel like they think a little bit more about their actions because your actions could have consequences.
But I also think they're the space in which, and we think about homosocial experiences, where it's almost like there's a lot more care for your homeboys than you have for your girl, too, at times. Like, at least these are my thoughts, right? None of what I'm saying that this has to be factual, but these are my thoughts because I think homosocial relationships exist and homosocial spaces are here, and they are sometimes can be harmful for men and or women who exist in those spaces. Like, one of the negative sides of women having homosocial spaces is having your girl that's always on your side even when you're wrong.
True.
Right? Like, I was talking to my homegirl. She told me I don't need to be with him, this, that, and that, blah, 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 blah.
And it goes back to, you have to be particular about having quality individuals around you, because just how we talked about how men can have ain't shit niggas around them, you can have women who have ain't shit bitches around them who are like, yeah, girl, take him for everything he has. Yeah, girl, keep cheating on him. And they're horrible individuals.
Yeah.
I will say that a lot of women who find themselves to be here it is. The homosocial relationship that women have that I absolutely hate is the two bad bitches link up and they're so surface level. They have no communication skills. They only have friends who they think they can Instagram photos with. Like, those bitches I absolutely hate.
You actually tap on something I believe. And part of me, as we've continued to have this conversation, if I've done my research and just thought about the concept, I think most homosocial relationships are very surface because it's for that immediate gratification.
Exactly.
Right?
Because either the friends that I have around me are either bigging up my ego, stroking my ego, telling me how I'm never wrong, how I'm always right. And that's not gender specific.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, it might lean more with men than girls or women, because we do have a term, a girl's girl. Yeah. So there are a lot of women who will hold you accountable. There are a lot of women who are like, I don't know, girl, maybe you should stop talking to him if he's that horrible of a person. Like, there's a lot of women who I have lost friends because I'm like, that's stupid. you shouldn't do that. And they just want to be horrible people. And I'm like, I'm not going to keep horrible people around me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because niggas will know that they dude who they've been friends with on the playground since 2 is a horrible person. But the longevity of that relationship means so much to them. It is always astonishing to me how men will still be friends with other men who are deadbeat baby daddies, who are abusive, who are cheaters.
Yeah.
And they're just like, but I've known him since I was 5.
Let me be very
That
clear.
nigga go!
This is a topic that we talk about on this very show at some point, that I don't believe in that. Again, let me say this, and I'm going to rub my hands together.
Like Birdman.
So when I think about, and I think when I struggle to fully understand like homosocial experiences or homosocial spaces as a homosexual man, which is a little of a clusterfuck, right? Is when I choose someone as a life partner, they now become more important to me than my friends and even my parents.
Understood.
For me, right? And that doesn't mean that my parents are second rate or second fiddle. And also, the benefit I have right now, my parents are dead. So,
Jesus.
you know what I'm saying? Can't really put them above nobody right now, you know? But I say that to say, like, it's one of those things like, you don't choose your family, but you do choose your friends and your partner. How do you actively choose these people with the intention, or unawarely the intention, to not uphold the very thing you are choosing? It's like getting a job and like, I guess I'll get to it. No, you're going to go to that job and you're going to perform your butt off because you want to get that paycheck at the end of the day. If you work a job that earns commission, you're going to do everything you can to get as much money as possible, right? Your parents at some point no longer can provide you that commission. So why are you still working towards that thing?
I want to make sure that I say that you are correct. There are a lot of men who get into relationships and necessarily don't give up their friendships, which is not a bad thing.
Let me be very clear. If my partner ever came to me and say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with your friendship with this person, we go have a conversation, but in the back of my mind, person's like, damn, I guess they got to go.
I want to say from a woman's perspective, and I'm saying this because...
Depending on the reason, if there's a legitimate reason for my partner, I support my partner all day. If my partner, like, this person did or said something you didn't notice, I'm going to call me Nancy Drew because I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And if it means cut that person off, it will mean cut that person off, even if I break up with that person. There are people I'll cut off from my ex who I still do not associate with because I cut you off for a very valid reason for me.
What I want to say, and this is really important, is that I see with women the inverse of that, where women are all in on their partner and sometimes lose their friends. I want to be clear when I say that is dangerous for women. Because when you put all of your eggs in the basket, it isolates you. It puts you in a position where you could be abused. It puts you in a position where things could happen to you and you don't have your network anymore. You don't have your circle to reach out to for assistance and help.
Fair.
So it is very important, which I think is why homosocial relationships for women can be life or death, that if you are in a relationship as a woman, you don't lose your friends. They can really help you in certain situations if things turn ugly. Where for men, you know, they can put 50 eggs over here with their girl and 50 eggs over here with their men and be okay. But I do want to make sure that the difference between the two is made, because for women, it can mean life or death if you give up your friendships and don't have a homosocial network to go back to.
Yeah. I also want to say this. My opinion of what I feel about friendship and community. Also, I encourage people, don't be with someone who does not support you building a community with yourself, with quality people.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's another thing for another conversation for another day. But I will say that I feel like I do these like Jerry Springer wrap-ups and I'm just noticing it in this moment. Right?
Let me Jerry Springer wrap-up.
Right?
David's thoughts.
Right? Homosocial relationships have pros and cons to everything, right? I think it really comes down to, how do you identify yourself and do your friends represent you well, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a homosocial relationship as a straight man, a gay man, a straight woman, or a gay woman, or a straight they, them, right? I do think Brittany says something really great in the aspect of, are these quality people? Are we really taking inventory of the people that we keep around us? And a lot of times the answer is no. Just because you've known this person since elementary school does not mean that they're a great person or that they are a quality person that you should still be friends with. If you are not a scam artist and your friend is constantly known for stealing, is that someone you want to be friends with, right? And more importantly, when we think about homosocial spaces, and I'm thinking about straight men specifically who exist in this space, you can have those spaces without disrespecting women, queer people, trans people, and still be a good person. And I will wrap this last little piece up. When I think about people say that Russell Wilson is corny, are the same people who operate in some of the harmful energy of homosocial relationships, who believe that he is corny for actually catering to his girl. So with that, I'm going to say, y'all do better. I love y'all as always. Thank you, B, for being here yet again.
Of course. Of course.
As always, I enjoy you. I enjoy our conversations.
Same.
And I just want to say, cousin, thank y'all for being here. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another guest. Maybe it's just me. We'll find out in 2 weeks. But until then, thank you again. Peace.
Bye.